Hi, this is Stan Bush.
Hi, this is Stephanie Calvert.
This is John Payne.
This is Jack Hughes.
Hey everybody, this is Prescott Niles.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stevens.
Hello, I'm Kofi Baker.
And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
This is not a test. This is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joe K, and today our guest is BB Bule, the author of the new book, Rebel Soul, Musings, Music, and Magic. Now, if you're a subscriber to this channel, you might remember that I spoke to BB Bule earlier this year when I visited Rockin' Pod in Nashville back in March. BB was one of the special guests at that event, and she visited our booth for a short interview. Now, with how Rockin' Pod was set up, we were only able to speak to her for 15 minutes, and at that point, I had also not read her book. I bought a copy of her book at the event, and I made a point to read it this year so I could invite her back on the show to talk about what it was like writing the book and also what went into it. And, as an added bonus, today we're going to have a special guest co-host. Yes, someone who was a previous guest on this show, Abigail DeVoe from the YouTube series Vinyl Monday. She also read Rebel Soul, and BB's name came up when I interviewed Abby on this show a few months back. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for a collaboration. Abby agreed, so she joins us today to ask BB a few questions of her own. So in this interview, we cover a lot of great topics. We talk about some of the things that she wrote about in Rebel Soul. She tells us about working with Rick Derringer on her debut 1981 EP, Covers Girl. And she even gives her advice to young women who want to get into the music industry. This was a fascinating conversation, so I'm really happy that Abby was able to join the conversation and ask her questions as well. So, of course, I'd like to say thank you to Abigail DeVoe from Vinyl Monday. I encourage anyone who's a fan of this channel to check out her channel. She just posted an epic 2.5-hour video called A Brief History of the MC5. It is a fantastic video. You should definitely check it out. And of course, we need to thank our guest of honor, BB Bule, for coming back on the show to talk about her book, Rebel Soul, Musings, Music, and Magic, which you can get at Hozak Records, which is not just a record label, but it's also a publisher. They've published BB's book, and they have also reissued and remastered that EP I mentioned earlier, Covers Girl, and added 2 bonus tracks, which includes her cover of T-Rex's Get It On, Bang a Gong. And you might find this interesting. Her cover version of Get It On is what inspired John Taylor to record it a couple of years later with what became the Power Station. So, not only is BB's cover a great version of that song, it's also a really interesting point of classic rock history. So you can check that out on the reissue of Covers Girl. You can get that at Hozak Records. And you, of course, can find BB Bule online at bbBule.org, or you can find her on Instagram at RealBBBule. And once again, I'd just like to say thank you to BB for her time and her candor and for coming back on this show. I really enjoyed Rebel Soul, and I think if you're on the fence about getting this book, you should absolutely make a decision now, because BB tells us there are less than 200 copies of the hardcover still available. And we will talk about in the interview why the hardcover version is definitely one you want to get your hands on. So if you're on the fence about this, I would say get your order in now, and you won't regret it. And you can get copies of those hardcovers at Amazon or Hozak Records. So without further ado, here's our conversation with the author of Rebel Soul, Musings, Music, and Magic, BB Bule.
Get it on, get it on.
Well, welcome back, BB. It's good to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
All right. Well, last time we talked, it was in Nashville for Rockin' Pod.
Yes, Rockin' Pod.
The booth for a little bit. And when we spoke, you told me to do 2 things. 1, get on Instagram, and 2, to learn about Hozak Records. And I'm happy to say I've done both.
Oh, and I bet
Uh,
your life's better now.
Absolutely. Well, with you know what, with the way Twitter's going, I am happy to embrace Instagram at this point. So,
Yeah, I like Instagram. I've been really successful with reaching my audience with Instagram, and it's helped sell out shows for me. It has done all kinds of wonderful things. So I only have good things to say about it. But see, I don't use it as a political platform. I use it more as an inspirational platform. I try to uplift people.
yes, absolutely, and communicate. It gives us a better sense of like what's
Yeah,
going on with you. Let's talk about Hozak for a second. They published this book, Rebel Soul: Musings, Music and Magic. And I know they also did the reissue and the remaster of your first EP, Covers Girl. I'm going to ask you
Covers
about
Girl.
that.
Yes.
Yep. I'm
There's
going
an
to ask
S
you.
on that cover.
Yes, and it sounded great. I listened to it again today. Very good. I'm going to ask you about that in a bit, but first, let's talk about the book. So specifically, the presentation of this book. So what I love about this is that it is absolutely full of photos, color, black and white. You've got this great cover that's printed on the hardcover. When you were putting this book together, was this your vision of, as far as presentation goes? Was it your call to like be really immersive with the photos, or did Hozak sort of present an opportunity and then you kind of took the ball and ran with it? How did the production of the presentation come to be?
Well, I owe this whole presentation to Todd Novak, the creator of Hozak. Not only does he make these incredibly gorgeous books, but he's a record company. So he has records and whatever format you want to buy something, you can get it. But the thing I loved about him is, yeah, I chose the cover, I chose the image, but he did everything. I mean, he puts the whole thing together. He got me a scanner, he told me to get to work, and anything that I owned or that I had permission to use, I scanned for him. And I mean, believe me, we could have had 200 more photographs in there. So that's going to be one of the next projects, a coffee table photo book.
Oh, very
I would
cool.
love that.
I'll just ask about the coffee table book. When that project comes together, obviously there'll be lots of photos of you. Are there going to be pictures that you have also taken?
Wow, that's a very interesting question because I've never thought about that. You're the second person. The only other person that ever asked me, "Mommy, your pictures are so good," is my daughter.
Wow.
So there is a chance there'll probably be some of my iPhone creativity, but I've never picked up an actual camera.
Okay.
And but I've taken a lot of really fun and I think unusual iPhone photos,
Okay.
which I would like to share at some point, but you can usually see them on Instagram too.
So let's talk about the stuff that you wrote in this book. For people who don't know, this isn't just a sequel to, so to say, to your first book, Rebel Heart. Like you say in the title, it's musings, there's essays, there's a part in the book that you pay tribute, memorialize a number of your friends who've passed in recent years, David Bowie and Rick Ocasek, Prince, Tom Petty. And that's a really beautiful part of the book. So my question is, when you were putting this project together, what did you find to be the most emotionally challenging part to write, and how did you get through it?
I think the most emotionally challenging parts are when you are estranged or haven't fixed a past mistake with somebody. I was absolutely at peace with all the people that had died.
Yeah.
I had active, ongoing, healthy relationships with those people. And including, I've lost a lot of people that aren't household names too. It just
Right.
comes with the territory. As we get older, you notice that that we all die together. It's just one of those things. In 100 years, we'll be either remembered for doing something wonderful for the world, or we won't. It's just the way it goes. But I think for me, the hardest part was writing about Todd or Elvis, because those are very challenged kind of relationships that I don't understand the reasoning behind being bitter or mad still at somebody decades later, when there was so much about the time you were together that was years, that held so many fantastic memories and so much history. Oh my God. So many things that Todd and I did together were historic moments. Just, we were so lucky to be in the third row seeing David Bowie do Ziggy Stardust at Radio City Music Hall. Who could ask for more? It was unbelievable. But so for me, that's the cathartic part. And you know, my little bit about Lynn Goldsmith, who's still really mad at me.
Oh.
So those were the three people that I hope that I was able to touch a little bit. Maybe is that the right word? Because I believe in closure and I believe in love. And the thing is that all three of those people I genuinely love completely. And I believe that they love me too, but they just have, they're unable to do whatever it is that makes somebody not want to continue to be mad about old shit.
Yeah.
I just think it's better for your health, myself personally. I think it's better because none of those people did anything to me that was just so horrible that it's unforgivable. I don't speak about the people that have done that to me. Right. I don't mention them. Their names don't get to be part of my life. So if I've loved you and truly loved you, I'll say so. If I don't love you and you're an awful human being, your name will never, I just won't say your name ever again.
You shouldn't platform people who don't deserve it, and it's a very heartfelt book. I really enjoyed reading it. I want to pivot to the Covers Girl reissue, because we talked about it a little bit in Nashville, but what I wanted to ask you about was last time we talked about Rick Ocasek, but we didn't get a chance to talk about your work with Rick Derringer, who I know is married to your friend. You know, could you tell me a little bit about what it was like back in the day working with Rick Derringer?
Oh, well, Rick Derringer, as you know, was the producer du jour for a while there.
Oh, yeah.
People, you know, he's kind of mysterious because he played with both of Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter. But a lot of people don't realize he produced all that stuff. He produced Frankenstein, which was a huge hit. He was only 16 when Hang On Sloopy captivated all of us. I mean, I think I was in 6th or 7th grade when I heard that on my little radio the first time. And little did I know that years later that his wife would be my best girlfriend.
Yeah.
But yeah, being in the studio with Rick, he was very, very skilled and very professional. When I worked with Rick Ocasek, he had only produced one other thing besides me, and that was Suicide. Oh. So I kind of thought that maybe I was practiced or whatever, but no, he was very, very serious about making a record with me. And so the two of them, Rick Derringer came in afterwards. Rick Ocasek started the whole thing. And then Rick Nielsen was gonna do 2 tracks if I had gone with Epic. I mean, I tell that story in the book.
Right. My
friend Dick Wingate at Epic wanted to put out the record. And he had a great idea. Oh, the 3 Ricks, you know, right. Rick Ocasek, Rick Derringer, and Rick Nielsen. And I remember my friend at the time, who I think I'll just let him remain nameless, not because I don't love him, but he hates it when he gets talked about.
Okay.
But he goes, "Oh, all you've got to do next is get Rick Wakeman, and then you'll be all set, won't you?" It was like, it was kind of funny. But anyway, the project evolved as it did, and I ended up on Rhino Records, which turned out to be kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, that's an independent label, I know. And can you tell me what it was like? Because I remember when we talked, you said that it sold fairly well for an indie release.
It did.
So when you put this out, what was it like promoting the record? What was the strategy for you to get people to buy it? I mean, were you doing radio appearances or live shows?
Yeah, well, that's what you worked back in those days.
Yeah.
And guess who my guy was? Rhino hired Steve Leeds, who went on to become the president of Sirius XM for many years. He only just, president of communications, and that kind of, his title was huge. But Steve Leeds started off as a radio promoter. So I would go to his office and we would just work the phone for hours. He would get the radio person on the phone. I would get on the phone with the radio person. We'd do a little interview and I would do several spots. "Hi, this is BB Bule for WBCN Radio," that kind of thing. And this went on all day. This went on, and you just went all over the country and you did that. And you hoped for airplay.
Oh, gotcha.
And what happened was so many different people, because we weren't working a single, everybody liked a different song. So I was getting played a lot, but a different song. But it's kind of funny. But the one that seemed to resonate with everybody the most, and that became sort of a little semi-dance hit in the clubs, in the cool dance clubs, was Fun Time.
Right.
So, yeah, I want to re-record Fun Time someday.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, I was listening to it today. That is definitely one of the better tracks on the EP. I mean,
I'd love to do it now that my voice is more seasoned. When I recorded it the first time, I was a little girl. I was like, "Hey, baby, I like your lips." Now it'd be, "Hey, baby, I like your..."
Yeah, just totally lean into it. Yeah.
So it just needs a little bit of dirt, and we'll, but that seemed to be the one that the radio was playing all the time. And it was a little long for it to be a single. So it just went the way it did. They put out a single in the UK on a label called Moonlight, and they did Little Black Egg. That was the one that they thought was going to be the hit, or at least that Rick Ocasek was hoping was going to be the hit, was Little Black Egg. But anyway, that EP, I did all the same stuff you do if you're on a major label. We worked the radio. We worked the radio hard, and I toured.
Oh.
So, and back then when you toured, it was, real kind of touring.
Yeah.
You get in the van, you have your trailer with your gear. Somebody has to sleep in the van so you don't get robbed.
Right.
And I'm glad I did it. I've played a lot of clubs, man.
Oh, for sure. That was going to be my next question. Just thinking about when it comes to playing live gigs, over the years, obviously your set list has changed. I saw you play at East Side Bowl in March, and I remember you playing Alice Cooper's "Is It My Body" and "Love Removal Machine" by The Cult.
Yeah.
When you play shows nowadays, how do you pick the songs that you want to play, and what are some of your favorite songs to play?
Well, it's always fun when you do a cover for it to be a song that you really like. And I judge it by the audience's reaction. And I can't play without doing Love Removal Machine anymore. people want to hear me do it. So I'm going to have to record it eventually, because it definitely is like the number one. You love removal machine. You know, I always get that one. I've had a fair amount of good response for Is It My Body? But I think that the one that they always ask for is Love Removal Machine. And what's the other one? I play with the Rock and Roll Residency a lot, and we do covers. But recently I've a couple of times I've done Sonic Reducer and, you know, a Dead Boys song, and the audience has really dug that. So, you know, I like doing songs that I love. You know, I just, and I like to BBize them. I like to make them my own. And I like to pay homage to whoever I'm honoring, you know. You want them to like what you did. You want them to like what you've, if you do a version of somebody's song, you hope that they like it, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And it's always good that when, you know, when you can kind of pick deep from the catalog, you know, I think that impresses an audience when you pull out a deep cut like Is It My Body instead of, oh, I don't know, School's Out, right? You know, that's
whatever. Yeah, a predictable one like I'm 18
right.
or something. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I love obscure nuggets myself.
For sure.
And I mean, a lot of people go, "Oh, you should do that cult song, She Sells Sanctuary." And I was like, well, you know, I'm a rocker and I prefer Love Removal Machine. It's like, I just love that song. I remember the first time I heard it on the radio. I was in the van with my band, the Gargoyles, and hearing that come on the radio, it really, it knocked us out. It was incredible. And it was like the first time you heard Just What I Needed by the Cars, or, you know, just remember the first time I heard 18 by Alice Cooper was on the radio.
Yeah.
Or Behind Blue Eyes by The Who. I mean, just hearing these songs on the radio for the first time, and you could call up your radio station and go, "Oh my God, what was that song you just played?" You know, that's what happened the first time I heard Layla. I think I was like a junior in high school or something, and came on the radio, and I could not believe it. I almost fainted. And I was like, and I called the radio station, and that's when they used to answer the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my God, who was that?" And he said, "Oh, that's Eric Clapton's project, Derek and the Dominoes." And I went right out and I bought it.
Perfect that you mentioned that, because Abby is a big Layla fan, a big Eric Clapton fan. So, Abby, why don't you take over from here for a bit?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you saw my face when you mentioned Layla, but I remember the first time I heard that song. I think I played it 3 times in a row. Just 21 minutes straight of the song. I could not believe it. So, oh gosh.
Well, you're lucky you have a platform where you could play it 3 times in a row. The first time I heard it, I had to wait for the next time it came on the radio or go out and buy the album. And I did both.
Yeah, I had it on vinyl. I was listening through this whole record for the first time, and
yeah,
I think it's a little worn down there now. But anyway,
yeah,
you were talking about, you know, the bands you've formed and the groups that you've covered. You know, from the classic rock period to punk, and then maybe into new wave. You've taken to all of these scenes like a duck to water. You are like a rock and roll chameleon. So, I mean, my first question for you is, how do you do it? How are you so adaptable?
I'm not sure. I just do what I do. I just do me. I don't really contemplate it. If it happens to have a diverse palette, that wouldn't surprise me, because I have a diverse, you know, I'm a diverse thinker. Yeah. So I feel music. I don't jump on trends. I stick to who I am. I think that that's pretty consistent. I think the only thing that's changed is my voice has grown up and gotten older. So it's a little tougher. I can really nail it now. I can sing for hours and not do damage. I have more training. I know what I'm doing. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. I've always just followed what I like. And I've always just listened to what moves me inside and hoped that people would agree.
A
But
true original moved by the music. I love that.
yeah.
Oh gosh. So like reading Rebel Soul and reading about the music and stuff that has moved you, and looking at the photos. Like I loved the photo portion of the book. It felt like going through photographs with a cool aunt who isn't really your aunt, just like the family friend you always called aunt. That's what it felt like. You'd find a cool ticket stub and go into the story about it, off the cuff. What was choosing the photos for Rebel Soul like?
Well, I did what my publisher asked me to do. He sent me a scanner because I didn't have one. And my husband, who's the techie around the house, he got to work, and we just started going through the archive. And I had to really get organized, is really what I had to do. I had to like really search, but there's still so much more. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Wow.
But basically, he chose the layout. Todd, my publisher, is the one that chose how it would look and designed it and conceptualized. I mean, the cover is waterproof. So if you're like if you're reading your morning coffee, if you're having and you're reading my book and you spill a little coffee on it, just wipe it off. It'll come right off.
I never noticed that. I guess because I had it on my nightstand and usually keep a drink, that I never noticed that you couldn't wreck this.
I don't want anybody to go spilling things on it just because it's waterproof, but just in case. But I just thought that the packaging was beautiful, and I love the textures, and just the work that Todd does is really beautiful. It's nice.
Growing up, did you have any experiences, with the women in your life where you would go through their photos and talk about those stories? What was that like?
Well, my mother was a model. So, she has, Liv and I have a lot of her stuff. And of course, Liv immediately went out and framed everything. And we've got beautiful pictures of my mother. And my mother always kept a lot of photos of me. And I've only got one or two of me with my dad, though, because I didn't know him well, which I talk about a little in the book. But I guess it is a family thing, how you care about photographs, and I always kept everything. So I'm glad I did. I'm really glad that I did. Looking back on it now,
we're really glad that you kept all of that too. Your archive must be amazing, and I can't wait to see more of it.
Thank you.
Speaking of your photos, what you've kept, and your Instagram. So when you first came up in conversation, when I first met Joe, the first thing that came to mind for me was your Instagram and these beautiful bouquets of flowers that you'd post. Flowers that you'd receive from your husband and from your family. I promise this is going somewhere. Flowers are kind of a lost art of etiquette, which you talk about a little bit in the book. What's a lost art of the etiquette of the music scene?
What's that last bit? What is the etiquette of what?
What's a lost art of, the etiquette of rock and roll? What about that is changing?
I think the art of giving flowers and writing letters, I think it still exists within some circles. When Susie Cave, Nick Cave's wife, sent me a gift, it was one of her vampire's wives' capes, and she wrote this beautiful handwritten letter with it, which I appreciated greatly. I just thought, wow, this she's the real deal. She's just a class act and a beauty and everything in between. And I have a couple of girlfriends that are real big with the flowers. It kind of makes me feel guilty. I wish I was a little bit better with that, but I am good with the handwritten cards. But with rock and roll, I used to think there could be some rock and roll etiquette, but it's changed so much. The scene is so different now. You couldn't really write a rock and roll behavior book because backstage has become more like a sanctuary for family and very close friends. It's not the hang that it used to be in the old days.
Yeah,
The-
you can't just knock on the door and ask to be
Oh
let
no,
in.
no. So there's plenty of etiquette rules in those kind of situations. Being polite is always number one. That's what I always say. That just be courteous, be polite. Don't, don't act like a nutbag. It's pretty simple. But I think the long lost art of a lot of things has dissipated because for me, I feel like Patti Smith, I think, feels the same way about her Instagram that I feel about mine. It's become more of like a diary for me, like a daily diary where I look back, where I look at the day, where I look forward, where I get excited about a gig, and it's become sort of more like my personal way of communicating with people that I love and people that I don't even know. But I find that it really gives me the opportunity to be me, and that's the best place I have found to be able to execute that. And I don't know what we're going to do. The world is so different now. And we could get into what's going on in the world, but I think we're all exhausted.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, we're all exhausted. That doesn't mean that nobody cares. I
Right.
care immensely. To the point where I ate a bag of chips one night. I mean, it's just, we've gotten to that point, where it's very worrisome where we are. But in every war and in every upheaval in our world, there's always entertainment. It's very important. People need it. They need it more than ever when we're going through the things we're going through. People need love and they need entertainment. And, I'm perfectly happy to do both.
Absolutely.
This is more of an open-ended question, maybe in line with the last one. What advice would you have for a young woman traversing the world of rock and roll?
What to be a musician, or just embracing the world?
A musician, a muse, a writer,
Well, being a muse is not a good paying job. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, being a muse is something that either it encompasses your life or it doesn't. You can't just go, I think I'll be a muse. In order to muse something, you need to be part of it. It's hard to explain. It's hard for me to put it into words. So that right there, check that off. I mean, anybody that just wants to hang around musicians, I think those days are kind of past. I don't think there's really that kind of scene anymore where people can just frolic together and go chase the rock bands. Those days are really over. We live in such a different world now, and bands are scared because of the Me Too movement and because everybody from the 70s is getting sued for inappropriate behavior. And it's life on the road now is all about family and doing great performances. So if you like that family life, you bring your kids and your family along with you on the road now. But being a musician, that takes complete 100% dedication, and you have to be really serious, and you have to be willing to suffer, because you don't get everything handed to you all at once. That's for sure. And I think that's why people are excited about a town like Nashville, because somebody like Taylor Swift can be discovered when she's 17 years old in a tiny little place called the Bluebird. And there's that element in Nashville that I find exciting. I've been here 11 years now, and it's very refreshing. The music scene is always recharging, changing. It's very active. Now, the political scene here needs a lot of work, but we are a red state. We're turning purple. Well, we are purple now. There's a lot of blue here because of all the transplants. But if any advice I would give a young girl is be a musician if you have truth and dedication inside of you. If you're going to learn an instrument, if you're a singer or a songwriter, don't wait, don't dilly-dally, just get to work, do it. Even if you're 14, you know what you want when you're 14. I did. I knew what I wanted when I was 10. So it's really okay. But I think if anybody is aspiring to meet a rock star and get married and to be a rock wife, I think you have to have your own thing going. It's very, very important in this world. Women can't just float around like they used to. It's very different. You got to have a good job. And even if it's not a job that pays $1 billion, it has to be something that you love, something that makes you happy, and something that also allows for you to be a musician. So that takes getting started early. But work ethic, it's complicated, because I didn't get as serious about my music until after I had Live, and I was about 26 or 27 when my first record came out. So I wasn't 17, but yet I had all the same knowledge of somebody that had been around this industry for 10 years. But I'll tell you, things are very different on every level. It's harder for bands to get record deals now. There's not that many record companies that think progressively. It's a very closed sort of little thing right now. So really the only way you can have your own voice and to break out like a band like the Struts or Starcrawler, they did it all through the internet, and also their brilliant live shows, blowing everybody's minds when they played live, But I don't know. I think it really depends on what your dream is.
But on that note about doing the work, I want to pivot back to actually something we've talked about a couple of times now,
right.
Instagram. I saw recently that you have been putting in the work. I saw a post that you were in the studio with, is that Gregory Latimer?
Yeah.
We're recording with? Yeah. So is this part of a new album from you?
No. This was a special thing that I've done. It was one song. You'll hear about it soon.
Oh, very good.
It's a contribution that my contribution to an already existing and in the works tribute to a special person.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I know you had planned, you have a new album planned at least. Are you still working on
Yes,
that?
I do.
Okay.
I absolutely do. And I'm moving forward sort of one song at a time, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to, I'm thinking I would really love to work with Greg.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling it out. I'm feeling it out a little bit. I just want to get through this year, and then I'm going to dive back in pretty deep. And I'm doing something very cool though. On January 24th, I'll be singing at the Ryman for the first time. I'm so only one song, but I'm thrilled about it. I'm going to be Yes, I'm so excited about that.
What's the
And
occasion?
hmm,
What's the occasion?
the Smithereens are opening for Mr. Big.
Oh, okay.
And as you know, I recorded a Smithereens song in my career, and they loved my version, and Pat Denizio loved my version of Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna come out with the guys in January and do it with them
Very cool.
at the
Very
Ryman. I'm
Yeah.
so at the Mother Church.
Yeah.
Yes. I got
Well,
another one crossed off my bucket list now.
absolutely. Well, congrats on that. We're looking forward to that already. And another thing I'm looking forward to, and I wonder if you can give us an update, is I know that there's a documentary that was in the works about you. Is that still going forward?
Yes, and you know what happened with that whole thing was COVID
Oh, of course. Yeah.
and then a strike.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I
Oh
shouldn't
my
laugh about
God.
that. That's
Oh.
right.
So
Yep.
now the whole thing has like moved into an entirely different dimension. It's I've got a brilliant young producer now, but that's for sure. I mean, somebody great. But I'm at the point now where I'm just not talking about it
Mhm.
until the whoever controls COVID and the strike, they need to get their shit together and figure out what's going on. And everybody has to get in sync with the rules and the laws. And you can't treat actors and writers like shit.
Absolutely.
And you just can't keep telling people that they're going to get sick with COVID if they don't get a vaccination every year. So now suddenly COVID, that was always not the flu,
Right.
has become the flu.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I mean, I think you've probably noticed when I just went to see Chris Isaac, I noticed that his guitar players all brought him his guitars and they had masks on. So crews still wear the mask because you can still get it. But as far as the documentary goes, I'm fortunate ahead with other things that I'm doing and some of them reflect even a series. There was somebody else that's interested in buying my life story. So I've got this complicated soup in front of me right now. Thank God I've got a good attorney. Hi, Wallace. Anyway, because they say when it rains, it pours, or I don't know if it was after Daisy and the Six or after Steve Jones's thing came out. Suddenly my life started looking very attractive as a series to certain producers. So there's that to consider as well. So therefore, making a documentary would be more effective if you were making it while you were maybe working on one of those kind of projects. And who knows? I'm just the subject at this point. I'm trying to kind of stay away and let them work it all out and figure out who gets what, who doesn't get what, where is it going, where's it not going. But I mean, I support it. I support the project 100%. But I think right now it's best for me to not be too involved until they get it all sorted.
Right.
But it's happening. Boy, is
Good.
it happening.
As long as it's still happening.
It's happening like in 3 ways now instead of just one.
Yeah.
But
You could even say it's all happening.
it's all happening. Oh my God. It's all happening.
Well, in the meantime, fans can get this book. This will have to hold them over.
Well, I have to tell you about Rebel Soul, guys. If you want the hardcover,
yeah,
I think there's like 200 left. And the only way you can get these hardcovers is on Amazon, of course. And just search BB Bule Rebel Soul and it'll come right up. Or through Hozak. And you can go to the Hozak website and it's Hozak Records and Books. I'm not sure exactly how it's very easy to find them.
I'll post a link.
It's all at the link in my bio as well, on Instagram. But if you get it, you can get it directly from the publisher or through Amazon. But once these hardcovers are gone, that's going to be it for the hardcovers, and then we're going to go paperback. It'll be that nice hard paperback, but still, it won't be the same as having this gorgeous, almost mini little coffee table book,
Yeah.
sort of, right?
Absolutely. Now, for the paperback, are you planning any additional material to be in the paperback, like an extra chapter or anything?
Well, if Todd wants me to do that, I would be happy to.
Oh,
he has a. If Todd wants me to add something, or yeah, I would love it. And I just had another. Oh, did you read the Preservation Society books that Hozak put out? About
no, unfortunately, I've not.
The albums that the coolest albums ever made that didn't hit the top 100. They have volume 1 and volume 2.
Okay.
Well, I did a chapter in both of those books. I did the Flaming Groovies for volume 1, and I did Johnny Winter and for volume 2. But they put out great books, and their photo books are beautiful. They're really cool.
Nice.
So Hozak, you guys, that's Hozac. Well, you'll turn them onto that, won't you?
Oh, absolutely. I just think it's really cool that you originally released Covers Girl on an indie label back in the early 80s, and now all this time later, it's only appropriate that the reissue comes out on an indie as well. Full circle.
Yeah, well, I support the indie market. I support independent labels, independent music, independent artists. I mean, some of the best bands I've ever seen don't have big budgets, but they can still pack the same room that the guy with a big budget can pack. There was this band for a while, and they had a horrible name, but they were so fucking good. Excuse my French. Am I allowed to say the F word?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay. They were called Diarrhea Planet, and they had 7 guitar players, and they were brilliant.
Yeah.
And a little unknown fact that I didn't know about the word diarrhea. If you ask an Asian person what their favorite American word is, they say diarrhea because it's so beautiful. The way they think the whole way the word flows is beautiful. But I don't know how they got the name Diarrhea Planet. They became DP after a while. But they were so good, and they were getting huge. They were one of those bands that everybody that saw them couldn't believe it. It was just crazy. You can Google them.
I will, but I'm going to be very careful about spelling that very specifically when I Google.
But anyway,
I don't want to get any accidental results.
No, but I'm just saying they just did like a get together comeback gig again, and the place was mobbed. And the same with my husband. His band Doth Damen just did a reissue, and they're playing a few shows here and there again, and it's amazing. The fans, I guess, Uber fans that really care about you, they stick with you forever. I have people that came to see me 30 years ago. Wow. It's wild. It's part of it. It's part of why I love what I do, because of the connection.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, a really positive note to go out on. I think we've had a nice connection here today. I just want to say to anybody listening that they should absolutely order this book. It's very heartfelt, beautiful presentation, as we talked about. And when that new album of yours comes out, I hope you'll come back and visit us, because I would really love to have a longer conversation with you about your whole discography. I think you have a lot of good stuff in there.
Okay, I'm taking selfies of us right now.
All right.
Thank you so much for your sage words of advice and all of the wonderful insight you gave today. Rock and roll is a weird space to be in. You don't really understand it until you're there. And there's just something so wonderful about hearing from someone who's been in that space for so long.
I'm just happy that I've been alive for all of this. And I hope I get to be alive about 30 or 40 more years. We'll see. I'd love to live to be 110. That would be awesome.
And you'll keep rocking until you're 110.
Well, I don't know about that. I think you can go, well, wow, look at Willie Nelson, and he was,
Yeah.
and look at Mick.
Yeah.
Keith Richards.
I guess into your 80s, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
Oh, yeah. As far as today goes, BB, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It was great meeting you in Nashville. It's so good talking to you again today. Best of luck with the new record, and I hope those last remaining 200 copies go real quick.
And let me know when I can share this interview with my fans. Let me know.
Absolutely. Probably in about
Okay.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, BB, you take care now.
Bye-bye, guys.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember the big 4 things you can do to support this show that don't cost a dime. Number 1, listen to the show. If you're hearing this now, that means you did this part already. Thank you. There is an infinite amount of content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means a great deal to me. Number 2, if you like what we did here, please recommend this show to family, friends, or anyone you know who's looking for a podcast, particularly about music. Share our links in Facebook groups, subreddits, and recommendation threads. Whatever you can do is highly appreciated on my end. Number 3, find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at PlayThatPodcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/playthatpodcast. And subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/playthatrock'n'roll. Lots of great material like photos and vlogs on all 3 platforms, as Play That Rock and Roll is very much meant to be a content hub as well as a podcast. And finally, the big ask. Number 4, please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I know this part is a hassle, but it really does help the show a great deal. Not just because it affects the algorithm, but also because it gives me something I can point to when pitching this show to potential guests. The more social media followers and positive ratings the show has, the better chance I have for booking high-profile guests for interviews. So if you take a moment to give us even just a 5-star rating, you are actively giving us a tool to do bigger and better things here. But whatever the case, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great stories and music from the world of classic rock.